The concept of data is particularly important as a way to understand digital sources, but it might seem like a relatively small unit to consider for analysis. The Oxford English Dictionary describes data as, quote, an item of information and a set of data, related items of information considered collectively, typically obtained by scientific work and used for reference, analysis, or calculation, as well as, quote, quantities, characters, or symbols on which operations are performed by a computer, end quote. The poet T.S. Eliot took a grim view of information and data when he wrote, "Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information?" Many people imagine data at the bottom of the pyramid because there's a lot of it, and individually it might not seem significant in isolation from a larger pattern. When we identify patterns, data can be transformed into information, which might be less common, and with experience and context, it might be transformed into knowledge and eventually wisdom. At the same time, there's a lot of interest in the potential of data for revealing the secrets of the world. We may talk about data-driven approaches, data-centered models, data analytics, and the profitability and richness of the big data made possible by new big data techniques. Now that computers are increasingly ubiquitous, memory is more capacious, storage is cheaper, programming is more precise, machines have more capacity, and data gathering techniques are more sophisticated. In other units of this course, we've discussed the problems that emerge when big data analytics may verge upon omnipresent surveillance. However, it's worth noting that information scientist Philip Agri is careful to distinguish between the surveillance that we conventionally associate with Big Brother and the forms of spying, observation, and watching orchestrated centrally, often by an authoritarian state, and what Agri calls capture, a decentralized and heterogeneous set of activities characterized by the activities of multiple parties who may be scraping or harvesting data without a clear intention for how that data may be deployed. Recently, UCLA professor Christine Borgman has begun encouraging people to get beyond some of what she calls the hype around big data. She argues that data can be big, but data also can be vulnerable. This is a quote from Borgman's book, Big Data, Little Data, No Data. It's the power of data, combined with their fragility, that makes them such a fascinating topic. She also wants to draw attention to what she calls little data, to teach people critical thinking about being data-wise, although she admits that, quote, distinguishing between big data and little data is problematic. This course encourages you to think about both the big data collected by corporations and governments who are gathering the digital material that you constantly spread and shed every second of every day, and the little data that matter to you personally as you create collections, dossiers, libraries, and portfolios that allow you to tell a particular set of stories about your life and find material right when you need to have it handy. Metadata is another concept that is important in this unit about curation. In recent years, metadata has been in the news a lot, with revelations from whistleblower Edward Snowden that the National Security Agency has conducted a number of blanket programs for collecting metadata from phone records and other supposedly private sources of communication. Usually the government can't gather information from private communication from channels such as the telephone or email without someone's permission or a warrant from a court. Constitutional protections against intrusive searches guaranteed by the Bill of Rights make it difficult to gather data on average U.S. citizens if they're not under suspicion of illegal activities and the authorities haven't made the case for probable cause. But intelligence agencies combating terrorism have argued that gathering metadata might be an important national security tool, and that metadata doesn't betray any confidences because metadata is a kind of label that is neutral and generic. In one analogy, officials compared metadata to the address on the outside of an envelope. The private message is still sealed inside, The public information just tells you where it's going and where it's been. Because of all these controversies, it's understandable if you might be confused about how to define metadata. The simplest definition of metadata is that it's data about data. For example, if we ask you to tag a forum post that you've written for this class with a particular label, such as the name of your section leader or the category of assignment you're responding to, we are asking you to add metadata to the data of your posting. It provides an easy way to search through the postings and group similar materials together in a collection. Metadata has also made social media more powerful as a way to influence public opinion. Hashtags added to postings on Twitter, Instagram, or other social network sites allow people to find and participate in conversations on particular political topics. For example, the hashtag Black Lives Matter is used to protest activities by the police that seem to impact the members of African American communities more harshly. It allows audiences to sort through the raw data of millions of tweets to find the most relevant content. Questions about how data might be processed or refined can be complicated. You met anthropologist Tom Belsdorf earlier in this course when we were discussing online identity. Belsdorf argues that just as raw food is cooked to be more edible, nutritious, desirable, and socially validated as a product of culture, raw data can be processed with metadata to be more easily digested. He also claims that just like food, data can be easily spoiled or made impure, a concept he calls rotted data or rotten data, borrowing from famed French anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss. Another expert in these videos, UC Irvine professor Jeff Bowker, is famous for asserting that there's no such thing as data because data is always processed for consumption to some degree. That's how data becomes legible to human beings, Bowker argues. As you think about your data and your metadata in all your future curatorial efforts, I hope that you'll stay in touch with the Culture, Art, and Technology program. We've tried to track your progress in this course and keep up with the many posts, responses, and assignments you've submitted. We also welcome your own personal efforts to make sense of your digital experiences as a rhetor and a rhetorician on your own terms. These efforts will continue to make you a successful composer, communicator, and curator in the future.